Okay, so the next part of our wave standard is dealing with frequency, amplitude, wavelength, and energy, and looking at the waves and how those things are related. Okay, so we should be able to draw and think of all these different types of waves. So if we have a high pitch wave, that is meaning that our wave is going to have lots of waves in it. It's going to have a high frequency. Then if we have a, let's see, so let's mark. Then if we have a low pitch wave, it's going to be different because it looks more like this. It's spread out. We could also describe this as having a low frequency. Okay, and then we can also describe the wavelength. So the one up here has a short wavelength. It has a short distance between the different waves, and then the one on the bottom has a long wavelength. It has a long distance between the waves. We can also describe the energy of these two types of waves. So the top one here with the high pitch is going to have high energy, and the one on the bottom is going to have low energy. So if you're ever confused about these, it's always good to go ahead and just draw high energy or high frequency, low frequency. Just draw the wave and you can kind of think about what's happening in each of the different waves. We still have amplitude to talk about, and actually both of these waves have very similar amplitudes. Amplitude is dealing with the height of the wave. So if we have a low amplitude, we do not have a very tall wave. But then if we have a high amplitude, we're going to have a much taller wave. So we have a low amplitude and a high amplitude. This is going to also relate to a quiet sound and a loud sound. Okay, so between wave number 1 and wave number 2, which has a high frequency and which has a shorter wavelength? Okay, so number 1 has a higher frequency because there are more waves going by. Waves are passing more frequently, so that's dealing with frequency. And it also has a shorter wavelength because the distance between the two waves is short. Frequency and high frequency and short wavelength are really describing the exact same thing. So we can have high frequency and it has a short wavelength, a lower frequency, a longer wavelength. That's what's showing here too. Okay, so look at this graph showing a wave and what is happening to the wave, what is changing. So the thing that's changing is the amplitude. The amplitude is getting shorter and shorter and shorter as we go. But notice the frequency here is staying the same. It's the same distance between each of these waves. So this would be a wave that isn't changing pitch, but it is changing the volume. So it's loud and then it gets quieter. But it is not changing the pitch. It's not getting higher or lower, it's just changing the volume. It's like turning the volume down. Okay, so here we have low energy and then a high energy wave, and we're looking at the amplitude. So we have low amplitude and a high amplitude. This is showing sound getting louder. Also, if it's visible light, it also shows color being brighter if we increase our amplitude. So if this was showing light, we would have a less bright and then a more bright color. Same color, just not as bright.